Hey, how's it going guys? Gaming Portal here, and I wanted to make a video to ask, what is the best survival game? Personally, I don't think there will ever be the one ultimate survival game that's the best at everything, or at least in the near future. Especially in this period where a lot of developers seem to be going the way of just releasing games in unfinished states on early access, or even unfinished AAA games for that matter. From the major glitches, lack of content, server issues, to the small niggling bugs that can halt your enjoyment of a game, there doesn't seem to be a survival game out there that's actually great. Of course you can have fun and enjoy the time you spend on it, but is it actually good? Probably not. Good for early access? Sure, but that's not saying much when a lot of games on there make you wonder how it even saw the light of day in the first place. But I digress. I don't want to rant on about the state of early access, since they'll probably take up the entire span of this video. Back to the original question then, what's the best survival game? At this point in time, I don't think it exists, maybe one day. All the survival games I've tried so far do some things well, but do other things poorly. So in the end, I guess it all comes down to what you actually want from a survival game and whether you're willing to spend money on a game. That's very much a work in progress in most cases. I'll be covering the most recent releases that have piqued mine and other people's interests. There are other survival games out there such as State of Decay, How to Survive, The Hunter Primal, This War of Mine, Dead State, Disney Princess My Fairy Tale Adventure. Wait, what? Let's just ignore that one, I think. With all that out of the way, let's talk about some games. The forest is probably your best bet if you want to scavenge, craft and attempt to beat the odds against an overwhelming threat. You can cut down trees and gather various ingredients to build shelters, benches, walls or even custom structures to build your very own fort. No pillar forts allowed as of yet, sorry. But make sure you don't have anything to do for a while, as it can take a long time to build a good one, which you may want when things go topsy-turvy and you're being swarmed by cannibals. You can also make efforts to warn off the cannibal army or invite them in and bash them in the face with a sweet looking axe that you found earlier. Or do nothing but explore the island and eventually die of starvation. You can even do that in co-op. Good times. The latest survival game to release on Steam Early Access is a game called Stranded Deep, which is pretty much Castaway the Simulator. It even features a cameo appearance of Tom Hanks' incredibly talkative and best friend Wilson. You are the passenger of what seemed like your own personal jet, which crash lands into the middle of the ocean Bioshock 1 style. You become knocked unconscious due to the explosion of a turbine and you wake up nearby an island in which you must use anything and everything on the island to craft and ultimately survive long enough to be rescued? Maybe, I'm not sure. I haven't lived long enough to see that happen, but it's a possibility. The game can feel a little bare bones at times, but chances are there's just something that you haven't figured out how to do yet. The depth of the game is there if you're willing to spend time in this world and look for it. If you want a more thinking man's survival experience where you have to actually figure things out for yourself and where you can pretend to be Tom Hanks, then this is a surefire winner. Or you can pretend to be Captain Jack Sparrow. No rum on these islands though. If you fancy something with the ever lovely zombie horde in it, then go for DayZ or H1Z1. Personally, I'd pick H1Z1 at this moment in time, even with its current issues. DayZ just has more of them, with zombies clipping through objects, clunky movement, weird weapon mechanics, the awfully unoptimized engine that they are apparently updating at some point, maybe in the next 5 years. This is footage running on an Intel 4770K with a GTX 970 and on high settings. Hope you like low frame rates. Overall, I just don't find it much fun to play, which games are supposed to be fun. It certainly has its fanbase though, so a lot of people might disagree with these points. As for H1Z1, you're able to craft a number of items to survive. Makeshift bows and arrows, entire bases which will eventually be raided by a lone wanderer. You can attempt to punch a bear to death and naturally can have a sparring match with a zombie. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, it kind of is. You can certainly have a good time with it for the most part, and it feels close to being pretty solid in a lot of areas, but the areas where it does let itself down don't go unnoticed. The main one for me being is that through the 15 hours I've played so far, I can barely find any loot at all. The main things I always seem to find are goggles, tactical flashlights, and rotten meat. I did find ammo once though, which was somewhat exciting I suppose. If only I found a gun to fire them with. In a game based around loot in a zombie filled world, it's a pretty poor showing, but at least it runs better than DayZ, which is something. My second issue being, which has actually sort of been resolved, but nevertheless it still exists so I'll mention it. Server queues. Now it's inevitable for a multiplayer game to have server queues, but queues that last as long as 40 minutes? No thanks, I'll just go and play something else. Thankfully they've added a lot of European servers into the mix, and since then I haven't had much of an issue. A 6-minute wait is probably the max I've encountered recently, which to me is pretty acceptable. You've probably been waiting for me to mention the pay-to-win microtransactions. Well, to be honest, I don't have much of an issue with them. As far as I've encountered, they aren't overpowered. The airdrop explodes and spawns zombies on top of it for you to kill before you get to your precious loot crate. And if you're playing on a PvP server, you may have other adventurers trying to kill you for it, where it will look like the beginning of the Hunger Games, and it could end up being that the loot inside it is rubbish anyway, so there's definitely a risk and reward theme going on. But even though I don't have an issue with them being used, I won't be buying any of the airdrops, because I don't feel like spending money on something that I may not even get, or it could be what's inside is rubbish and wouldn't even be worth picking up even if I found it in one of the various shady motels scattered around the map. So all in all, it's a game with a mostly solid ground level. The microtransactions don't bother me, so far anyway, and the game is getting a lot of support. There's already been a few updates to fix glitches, add servers and change some mechanics to make it more balanced. If only they'd fix the loot spawning. I've got a feeling it will be a genuinely good game before too long, definitely worth keeping an eye on. I'd say it's also worth checking up on DayZ from time to time. Bohemia have mentioned some lofty goals which can be nice to see, but whether they can reach them or not is another matter. They've also slated a beta release for the end of 2015, which means it'll be in alpha for another 9 or 10 months. It's been over a year now since the alpha released, and the game is still a bit of a mess, so take that as you will. I thought I'd save my favourite for last, The Long Dark. Released back in September, the game has had a lot of updates already in its 4-month lifespan, improving its gameplay mechanics and bug fixing at a rapid rate. From the time I've spent playing the game, I haven't encountered any major glitches or anything of that nature, but what I have encountered is a game that often looks like a painting with fantastic lighting gleaming through windows and patch trees, with wildlife running amok complementing the entire scene. In a word, it looks stunning. Its unique art style really makes it stand out from the crowd, and it has a quality seeping out of every pore even in its early access state. The game also features a calorie counter mechanic that puts a nice twist on the whole survival aspect that we've all seen before by this point. There is the usual hunger and thirst meters to watch closely, and there is also a fatigue and cold meter, so you've got to make sure that you're getting enough sleep and wearing warm enough clothes in your wintry adventures. The complaints I have about this game are more niggles more than anything. The equipment menu seems unorganised and makes it a bit of a chore to figure out what clothing you have equipped, which winter coat is warmer than the other, which one is in a better state. Even with the limited category options available, it can be tough. My other niggle is that there's not a whole lot of content to explore at the moment, but what is there is fantastic, and the developers have promised more maps and environments to explore, as well as an entire story mode coming soon, which is definitely something to look forward to. I said earlier that I hadn't encountered any major glitches. That's not to say they don't occur, but they haven't been game breaking so far, like this one for instance, which I actually thought was pretty amusing. The boy cried wolf, but the wolf got stuck. So in conclusion, all of these games both have good and bad qualities to them, which may slowly improve with time. But if you buy any of these, you'll be able to enjoy yourself in some capacity, and you'll also have the added benefit of watching the game grow as the developers squash bugs and add content to the game, if you like keeping up with that sort of thing. But there's one feeling that I can't shake when playing survival games, no matter how fantastic they are. Games that don't have some form of narrative to follow, a beginning, middle and end. Games where you keep on dying over and over again, where you lose all your progress and start all over, hoping that you might just find another way to help you survive it out in the wild a little bit longer. And the feeling that I can't shake is that in the end, it all just kind of feels pointless. That's all from me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and leave a comment below if you know of any other survival games that you think are awesome. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.